Vi ska läsa från Habakkuk kapitel 3. Så Habakkuk 3 och vers 1 och framåt. En bön av profeten Habakkuk till Shilonot. Herre, jag hör budskapet om dig och jag bävar. Herre, ge liv åt ditt verk i våra dagar. Låt det bli känt i vår tid. Tänk i din vrede på att förbarma dig. Gud kommer från Teman, den helige från berget Paran-Sela. Hans härlighet täcker himlen. Hans lov fyller jorden. Hans glans är som ljuset. Strålar går ut från hans hand. Där hans styrka dold. Framför honom går pest och brinnande feber följer hans spår. Han träder fram och jorden skakar. Folken bävar för hans blick. Urgamla berg splittras. Eviga höjder sjunker ner. Hans vägar eviga. Jag ser Kushans hyddor i nöd. Tältdukarna i Midjans land darrar. Vredgas Herren på floderna. Brinner din vrede mot strömmarna, eller din hand mot havet, när du för fram med dina hästar, med dina segervagnar. Blottar du bara din båge, som edsvunna pilar ditt ord sedan. Du låter floder klyva jorden, bergen ser dig och bävar. Störtregn forsar ner, djupet höjer sin röst, det lyfter sina händer mot höjden. Sol och måne står stilla i sin boning vid skenet av dina pilar som flyger, vid glansen av ditt blixtrande spjut. I raseri går du fram över jorden, i vrede trampar du ner hedna folken. Du drar ut för att frälsa ditt folk, för att frälsa din smorde. Du krossar taket på den gudlöses hus. Du bryter ner det från tinnarna till grunden sedan. Med hans egna spjut genomborrar du huvudet på hans krigare. Men det stormar fram för att fördriva mig. Deras glädje att sluka den svage i hemlighet. Du för fram med dina hästar genom havet, genom väldiga vattensvall. Jag hör dig och darrar i mitt innersta. Vid dånet skälver mina läppar. Röta tränger in i benen i min kropp. Jag darrar där jag står. För jag måste stilla vänta på olyckans dag, att den drabbar det folk som angriper oss. Fikonträdet blomstrar inte mer, och vinstocken ger ingen skörd. Olivträdets frukt slår fel, och fälten ger ingen föda. Fåren rycks upp ur fållorna, och ingen boskap finns i stallen. Men jag vill jubla i Herren och glädja mig i min frälsnings Gud. Herren Gud är min styrka. Han ger mina fötter som hjortens och låter mig gå fram över mina höjder. För sångmästaren med mitt stränga spel. Amen.
Planning to do in this last session is really just preach Habakkuk chapter 3. It's a sermon that I've preached before. I'm going to preach it to you. And I want you to remember some of the principles that I try and work to. Those ends. And just listen in. I hope you'll receive the word of God and be edified and encouraged. So that's part of the purpose, is that you would hear God's word and I'm preaching to you. But it's also an exercise to give you an opportunity then to ask me questions. Feel free to say, I'm surprised you did that. Why did you do that? I thought the passage said something very different. To try and understand how I've chosen to preach like that. And then also an opportunity to ask any questions about today and things we've talked about. Preaching, handling God's word, Habakkuk, really anything. I hope there'll be time. Hang on, don't go away. This thing's annoying me. There'll be no machines in heaven, which is not quite true. There'll be wonderful ones, but they'll all work. Okay. So, Habakkuk chapter 3. When life falls apart, what then? When life falls apart, what then? That was the title of a sermon given by a man called Arthur Gossip in the north of Scotland, a place called Aberdeen, in 1927. And it was the first time he preached after his wife very suddenly died, leaving him, a widower, and his children without a mother. He began with a question: how would you cope if out of nowhere something happened that left your life in tatters, and all the things you'd seemed to rely on just seemed not to be there anymore? How would you cope? Perhaps we can't imagine that these things could happen to us or to those we love, but then it does happen. Of course, sometimes out of the blue, things come and we're taken by surprise. When life falls apart, what then? And this preacher began by saying, I've always found it very difficult preaching to you because I've had such an easy life up to now. And I've imagined when I've encouraged you to keep trusting in God through the hard times, I can almost imagine you thinking, oh, it's all very well for him. But look at him and his wife and his happy family, and everything's going well, he's healthy. Very easy for him to say it, but if only he experienced some of the things that we've experienced, he wouldn't say it so easily. And then he paused. He said, I don't think anyone would question my right to preach today. And he told a true story about a man in Scotland in the 17th century who'd been totally faithful to his Christian principles, and as a result, for refusing to compromise, was shot by an English soldier. And having shot this man in front of his wife, the soldier turned to the wife, the husband now dead, and said, what do you think of your husband now? And she said, I always have thought very well of my husband, but I think even more of him now, much more. And Gossip said in this sermon, I've always thought much of the Lord Jesus Christ, but I think more of him now. Much, much more. He described how he's in the midst of the agonizing tears that he's experienced. He'd been immeasurably comforted by the presence and promises of God. How his faith was more real than it had ever been. When life falls apart, what then? That preacher's faith certainly wasn't a fair weather faith, only there when the sun is shining. And Habakkuk's faith was certainly not a fair weather faith. Look again at the words of chapter 3, verses 17 and 18. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vines, though the olive crop fails, and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the sheepfold, and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God my Saviour. Perhaps we think when we hear those words, well, that's all very well for spiritual giants like that preacher or like Habakkuk, but we are just ordinary Christians and we cannot expect to react to trials like that. But it's quite clear that Habakkuk was no superhuman person. He was no spiritual giant who sailed through life unaffected by the trials and challenges that came his way. Remember how the book begins, with Habakkuk in great confusion, crying out, why, God? I don't get it. What are you doing? How long, O Lord? Why don't you do something? And And then God responds, I'm about to. I'm going to bring the Babylonians down. Chapter 2 reveals God's promise of judgment and the end of salvation, the knowledge of the Lord covering the whole earth. And the righteous shall live by his faith. And here in chapter 3 we have an example of a life lived by faith. And maybe this is a moment where you're going through turmoil, because I haven't met most of you before today. Some of you, well, a number of you have still not met. I have no idea what the circumstances in your life are. Maybe there's some public thing that everyone else knows except for me. Maybe there's something no one else knows, but things aren't falling apart in your life and you're wondering, where is God? How can I keep going? It may be that you're living in a time of great sunshine, but who knows what will happen tomorrow or next month, when perhaps suddenly out of nowhere life seems to fall apart. Well, here we have 4 features of the life of faith. I want us to notice, first of all, the suffering faith endures. Those words in verse 17 are striking. Very beautiful words, very poetic words. But the beauty of the words may hide the horror of the situation. No, the fig tree does not bud. There are no grapes on the vines. The olive crop fails. The fields produce no food. And at first you might think, well, I can cope pretty well with some of these things. I used to have a fig tree in my garden, and in its first year produced 1 fig. And I was so excited. The next year, 100% growth. 2 figs. Hugely exciting. Next year, not a single fig. And I'll tell you what, I coped. Life is not full apart. So the fig tree not producing fruit, well, that seems to me, I can cope with that. No grapes on the vines. Well, I can definitely cope with that. As far as I'm concerned, fruit is medicinal. I don't understand people liking fruit. If I'm ill, I take medicine. If I'm ill, I take fruit if I have to, just to make me feel better. But there's no pleasure in eating fruit. So if I never saw a grape again, I'd cope. Though the olive crop failed, I was talking last night with Alexi, who loves olives. And I can't understand some of us. Why would you like, I assume, when you've done something wrong, people make you eat an olive. It's about the only thing I really don't like is an olive. I hope, Grandma, we haven't got olive stew tonight. So,
yeah, we have.
Yeah, you've got to warn your wife. It's the only thing I don't like. This is not what's going on. Suddenly the luxuries of life aren't there. Because these were staple crops in Israel. And if you read on, the fields produce no food, no sheep in the sheepfold, no cattle in the stalls. You realise the situation we're talking about is devastating. It's the land after the Babylonians have gone through, like locusts, just destroying everything in their wake. There's virtually nothing left. And there's the suffering faith endures. This is the kind of situation that the people of God might face. Otherwise, there's no point in writing these words. You may have come across the faith movement. It's one of the most popular movements within Christendom around the world. It's the teaching that is broadcast around Christian television stations all over the world, and people are being taught according to this kind of teaching. Names like Kenneth Copeland, Ken Hagin, Benny Hinn. It's name it and claim it Christianity. If you have faith, you receive health and wealth. The watchwords are visualize it and verbalize it. So visualize it. Just see yourself with that thing that you want. See yourself driving that car. See yourself sitting in the boss's desk. See yourself in that amazing, beautiful house. Visualize it and then verbalize it. The idea is that there is power in the very words you say. So somehow speak that reality into existence. Because so it's a positive confession of faith releases power. Name it and claim it. I can still remember being at a meeting where a man was saying that if you really have faith, you will be healed. And there in the front row was a young woman in a wheelchair who was paralysed from the waist down. And at the end, he was saying, if you really have faith, you will be healed. And claim anyone who has faith for healing, come forward now. And she was prayed for, and then she went away with tears in her eyes. I was told afterwards, she was the speaker's daughter. Devastated. Now, what does that kind of teaching do to someone? Of course, it's wonderfully true that God is sovereign. He's the amazing, powerful God. If he wants to heal, he can do it just like that. And he does. I've seen remarkable healings. But he has not promised to do it. And so it's not right to say, if you really have faith, then you will be healed. Because immediately someone who's not healed is immediately thinking it's their fault, they're doing something wrong. But you read through the Bible, and it's quite clear that the men and women of faith may experience great suffering. They may experience the loss of food from the fields, the loss of sheep from the pen, the loss of cattle from the stalls. Romans 8 verse 23 says that we're waiting for the redemption of our bodies. The people of God today may experience physical ailments. We do. I love Romans 8. And at the end of Romans 8 you can get that great question. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble, or hardship, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or danger, or sword? Why do you think he mentions those things? Because any one of them may come the way of the Christian believer. But none of them, if they come, can separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. We may face trouble, hardship, persecution, famine, nakedness, danger, and sword, even martyrdom. Now, maybe that we've been well taught, and we're not about to believe someone who says, if you really believe, you will be healthy and wealthy for the rest of your life. But we can still be the victims of a kind of sentimental piety. I think of one church member's wife. The church, her husband lost his job. He was doing a very, very good job, very, very well paid. They'd just moved to a lovely house, and then he lost his job. And they faced the prospect of having to sell the house, downsize, and so on. And she said, you know, people came to me and often said to me, don't worry, I'm sure God's got something much better for him. And she says, I found that really unhelpful. Because what they were implying was, he's lost his job, and surely God will give him a better job. But that's not promised, she said. It's wonderfully true that something better is guaranteed, because we're going to the new creation. It's wonderfully true that it's guaranteed that all things work for the good of those who love God, as we're transformed in the likeness of Jesus. That is true. There's something much better for us, whatever happens. But we're not promised that if we lose our job, we'll end up getting a better job. If our finances disappear, we'll end up with more money. And if we believe that, we'll be very disappointed in life. We will face hardships. Some of you are facing hardships that I'm not aware of right now. And at times, they will affect us deeply. I wonder what your dreams are. We start out in life, we have dreams. Maybe doing really well in exams, then going to the university by choice perhaps, then meeting the ideal man or woman, getting married, having kids who are happy and healthy, making a success in our chosen line of work, gaining a reputation, enjoying a comfortable lifestyle before we retire in good health. And then for the last few years of our life, a few decades of our life, enjoying whatever's left with our husbands and wives before we die painlessly in our sleep, before any serious decline has set in. That's the dream. Dare I tell you, in the real world, it may not work out like that. And of course, most of us realise that already, because it hasn't worked out like that. So I asked one of your great dreams, what are your worst fears? There's another question. you don't find a partner, or you do, and they're not the ideal partner. It's tough. Marriage is very difficult. You can't have children, or you do, and they turn from you and from your faith. As you get older, you lose your loved ones, you lose your health, you lose your mind. It happens to lovely, faithful men and women of God. So I can introduce you to a couple who longed for children. They couldn't have children. And then the wonderful news came through that she was pregnant. They were so excited. Baby was born, happy, healthy, and then cold death. Just died mysteriously. Agonizing. Then they had another child. They were praying. Born, happy, healthy, and then again died in infancy. Christians. Think of another couple, they longed to have children. They were told they couldn't. They adopted a child, and then within a very short amount of time, husband got cancer and died in his early 40s. Think of a young couple, and they were very, very happily married. And one night they were driving, it was quite foggy, and the man who was driving found the notice that the car had stopped in front, smashed into the car in front, wife died instantly. He was left with significant injuries. These things happen. And there's the suffering faith endures. And what can happen for individuals can happen for whole nations. Can happen for faithful people within nations. Can happen to whole churches. Can happen to faithful people within corrupt churches. And that's the kind of context. Here are the faithful people of God, represented by Habakkuk, saying, God, what is going on? Why? Why aren't you doing something? Why are you doing that? The suffering, faith endures. Second, the message, faith hears. The message, faith hears. Verse 1 begins a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet. He's speaking to God, as he is throughout the book. And then he says, verse 2, Lord, I have heard. And then right towards the end of the chapter, verse 16, I heard. We notice, as you had it read earlier, chapter 3, a very significant change of mood from the mood in chapter 1. Chapter 1, why? Chapter 3, wow, you're amazing, God. From why to worship. What's brought about the change? Chapter 2, God has spoken. God has spoken. So biblical faith does not start with you and me. It doesn't start with me looking into my navel and trying to conjure up faith. Desperately become more faithful. The more I look in here, the less stable my life will be. Certainly the less stable my Christian life will be. The Christian faith is responsive. It doesn't begin with me trying to conjure up faith. It begins with God taking the initiative and speaking and revealing who he is and his purposes. And we are called to respond by faith. We see God has spoken. On chapter 2, the revelation of God. Judgment will come on Babylon and on all the enemies of God. And one day the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of God as the waters cover the sea. And in the meantime, while they wait for this future reality of judgment and salvation which come together, the righteous shall live by his faith. In other words, by trust in the word of God. Believing the revelation. Believing that one day God's enemies will be judged, God's people will be vindicated, the earth will be filled of the knowledge of the glory of God. And here in chapter 3 we find Habakkuk as a man who lives by faith. The doubts, and confusions, and questions in chapter 1 seem to be in the background. And now we have a new sense of calm and confidence because God has spoken. And Habakkuk has listened and believed. Verse 2, Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds. Repeat them in our day. Well, literally, your work, Lord, do I fear. Your work is exactly the same word in the original. It's used in chapter 1 and verse 5 of the work that God will do, that people wouldn't believe if they were told. And God's work is the raising up of the Babylonians. Before, the work of God led to bewilder them. Now there's an acceptance, because he knows that even though God will use the Babylonians to bring judgment on Judah, one day God will bring judgment on all his enemies. And that brings peace. And what Habakkuk is doing in verse 2 is essentially saying, now Lord, I've heard what you're going to do. Would you please do it? Repeat it in our day. In our time, make them know. Do what you said you'd do. And when you do what you said you'd do in chapter 2 and bring judgment on your enemies, please, in your wrath, remember mercy. Vindicate your people. He's got confidence to pray like that because he knows what God is like. God must judge to be faithful to his character of holiness, but he's a God of amazing love. He longs to forgive. He's the Lord, the covenant name for God, the God who committed himself in covenant love to his people, and so he can pray with confidence. And if Habakkuk can pray with confidence, how much more can we? Because we live after the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. The Word became flesh. It was on the cross that wrath and mercy met. In wrath, remember mercy. Well, it's on the cross that God supremely, in wrath, remembered mercy. As he faced the Lord Jesus in himself, the wrath that we deserve, so that if we trust in him, he's able to give us the mercy we don't deserve, so that when he comes in judgment, there are those who don't receive that judgment, because Christ received it for us. Life won't always be easy. And if we look around at our circumstances, our hearts will often sink. If I look within, I'll often feel anxiety and doubt and fear. Someone once says, for every look within, take 10 looks at him. Never thought that's quite enough. For every look within, take 100 looks within. It was Charles Spurgeon who said, I looked at Christ, and the dove of peace flew into my heart. I looked at the dove, it flew away. And if I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh, I don't have enough joy. Where's my joy? Where's my faith? It'll soon disintegrate. I need to keep looking to the one who speaks. And then trust in him. Peace comes. The suffering faith endures. The message faith hears. Faith is responsive. And then third, the song faith sings. You probably noticed that the whole chapter is set to music. It's introduced as a prayer, it's also a song. And so you read in verse 1, according to Shigionoth. We don't know if that's a tune or it's the tempo. And then 3 times, verse 3, verse 9, verse 13, Selah. It's some kind of musical notation. And then in the end, verse 19, for the director of music on thy stringed instruments. So this whole chapter, this whole prayer to God is set to music so that future generations can sing it, so that Habakkuk's words can become their words. They can use it as a kind of model response to suffering. And when you go through hard times, it's very hard to know what to say in prayer, isn't it? And that's why many of us have found the Psalms so helpful. You read the Psalms, and the words of the psalmist become your own words in response to God. God is our refuge and strength. Though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, God, our refuge and strength. Well, here's another psalm, as it were, a song that can be used. We can speak. Why a song? Why not just a poem that we can recite? Surely music helps us to express emotion. Sometimes it helps us to feel appropriate emotion to the truths we're singing. That's why it's great to sing. Because God wants us to respond to Him with the whole of ourselves, from our affections, not just our minds. And as you read through verses 3 to 15, this wonderful poetic description of the warrior God coming to win the final great victory against his enemies. In one sense, there's nothing new here. It's the same message as chapter 2. God will come to judge, chapter 2. Well, here He is, coming. It's a meditation in poetic, dramatic, musical form. Just reveling in this wonderful truth that God is the great warrior who comes to defeat His enemies. Now, verses 3 to 15 could have been summarised in just a few words. You could have just said, God will come to judge His enemies and save His people. That's the message. But rather like the story of my dad being a very kind man, that's the message, but the story gives so much more emotion to it. And so this poetry helps the message to sink in, not just to our heads, but to our hearts. Here is God. And we're invited to imagine Him, to picture Him coming to judge and to save. It's picking up on imagery from the great work of redemption in the past, in the Exodus, and He's doing it again. So verses 3 to 7 speak of His entrance. God came from Teman, the Holy One, from Mount Paran. I saw the television coverage of our Queen's coronation in 1953. The British Queen was crowned. And it was very moving to see the procession, this long procession. And then just before she came into Westminster Abbey, trumpets sounding, and that was the indication that now, after this long procession, which tells us someone's very important about to come, the trumpets indicate here she's about to come, and then you get the first glimpse of this amazing and beautiful young Queen. And here we get a procession. You can tell God's about to arrive. Just before Him, verse 4, the splendour like the sunrise, rays flash with His hand. You can see the light going ahead of Him. And then there are His personal attendants in front of Him and behind, verse 5. Plague went before Him. Pestilence behind. And then verse 6. There He is. He stood and shook the earth. He looked. One look from Him makes the nations tremble. The ancient mountains crumble. The age-old hills collapse. Sometimes we look around and the enemies of God look so immobile, so fixed, like those huge mountains, and you think nothing will move them. But one look from God, and the mountains come crumbling down. And the enemies of God, which are like a drop in the bucket, the great empires of the world, disappear before Him. When He says enough, that's the end of anyone proudly standing before Him. No, nothing can stand in His way. So verse 10, torrents of water swept by, the deep roared, and lifted its waves on high. In the ancient world, the sea, said in the Hebrew mind, the sea represented disorder. They couldn't control the sea. They were terrified of the sea. And here is the sea, as it were, putting up its hands in surrender before the awesome mighty God. God far more powerful than the sea. In verse 11, the sun and moon stood still in the heavens at the glint of your flying arrows. It's as if the sun and moon stopped their movement and say, wow, did you see that? Of course, in the ancient world, many people worship the sun and the moon and the stars, but here are the sun and the moon marvel at what God is doing. He comes to bring judgment and salvation. Mountains and the sea and the sun and the moon are powerless before God. It's no surprise that the nations that oppose Him, verse 12, are soon swept away in anger. You thresh the nations. And there's no doubt why God does this. He's doing it, verse 13, to deliver your people and to save your anointed one, His King. He's coming to vindicate the people of God. Now, it's one thing to understand these words, and poetry just gives you a feel, a picture. It's not meant to be read literally. It's giving you a sense of the awesome power and splendour of God and the completion of his victory when he comes. And my task as a preacher is not just to explain this, and this is where I feel so inadequate in preaching. So I can give you all my ends and the kind of things that I think I need to think about. And subconsciously I'm thinking about it as I'm trying to preach, I'm trying to explain, I'm trying to get the message across. But if you just get an understanding in mind that God is going to come and God's enemies will be judged and God will be vindicated, I haven't done the job. Because your life won't be changed just by an intellectual understanding of some truth. It's only when your heart is gripped by the reality that you live in a life that God one day will judge, and one day every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. My task is, as a preacher, to try and convey the wonder of what I'm speaking about. Martin Lloyd-Jones, the great Welsh preacher, said on one occasion, I can forgive a preacher just about anything, as long as he gives me a sense of the glory of God. And I just can't do it. Which is why the other thing you've got to do as a preacher is be on your knees. You can tick all the boxes. Yes, I've understood the passage. Yes, I've worked out how it relates to Christ. But I can't convince you of the wonder of this truth. I need God. And amazingly and wonderfully, sometimes through the weak words, the weak manner, God brings these truths to bear. And we see a glimpse of the amazing wonder of the living God. Louis XIV was the great French king, who was very arrogant. He called himself the Sun King, as if all light emanated from him. When he died, he decreed at his funeral in Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris that only be one source of light in the cathedral, a solitary candle on top of his coffin. Massillon, the court preacher, was called to preach the sermon that day. And as he walked towards the pulpit, past the coffin with the candle on, he went up and blew it out. And then he got up to preach. And he said, only God is great. Only God is great. And what a God he is. The God who comes to judge, to save. And there's a cause for singing. The suffering, faith endures. The message, faith hears. The song, faith sings. And then finally, the joy, faith knows. Verse 16 is the response to this revelation of God. It's profound. I heard, and my heart pounded. My lips quivered at the sound. Decay crept into my bones, and my legs trembled. See, it's not just an intellectual thing. Habakkuk has been deeply impacted by the Word of God, even in his very bones. I heard. And, end of verse 16, I will wait. I will wait. Most of the blessings in the Christian life are still to come. Although Jesus Christ died to take upon himself the judgment that we might receive mercy, only when he comes again will those who continue in proud opposition to God face judgment, and only when he comes again will we receive the wonderful blessings, all the wonderful blessings of what he did through his death and resurrection to make it possible for us to be saved. Great blessings now, but nothing compared to the blessings that are still to come. I heard, and I will wait. I will wait. Christian life is about waiting. But it's not just gritting your teeth now, just hanging on. It's all a bit miserable. But one day he'll come again, and then that'll be great. No, I heard, I will wait. And verse 18, I will rejoice. Even though, verse 17, all this suffering might happen. The fig tree doesn't bud. There are no grapes in the vines. The olive crop fails. The fields produce no food. There are no sheep in the sheepfold, no cattle in the stalls. Even though I don't meet the woman or the man of my dreams. Even though I do meet them, and they turn out not to be the one I dreamt of. Or they end up dying very young. We don't have children. Or I'm very lonely. I lose my health. I don't get the job. I do get the job, I don't get promotion. I get sacked. I lose my health, I lose my mind. Even though these things might happen, yet I will rejoice. Not rejoicing in suffering in and of itself. I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God my Saviour. Paul says rejoice. I'll say it again, rejoice. In all circumstances, rejoice. And this is not blindness. It's not pretending everything's wonderful. Some things are very, very miserable, and it's not unchristian to find them miserable. Be a very strange kind of person that wasn't sad, at suffering, at loss, at loneliness. But in all these things, the more than conquerors. And even though we can't rejoice at those circumstances, we can rejoice at God, our Saviour. He talks about my Saviour, verse 18. My Saviour. Not just a Saviour who's coming to save the world, but my personal Saviour, so I've got complete confidence in Him, and I'm looking forward to being with Him. And He's with me in all the ups and downs of life. Do you know the story of Richard Verbrack, the Romanian pastor, who for 40 years during the Cold War was in communist prison? 3 years in solitary confinement. He wrote the account of his suffering. He said that the communists believe that happiness comes from material satisfaction. But alone in my stomach, cold, hungry, and in rags, I dance for joy every night. Sometimes I was so filled with joy that I felt I would burst if I did not give it expression. Whatever the circumstances you're facing in life, but if you trust in Jesus, just think about these truths. He's my Saviour. He loves me. He knows me. Now those are two amazing truths to put together. Because I might think, well, He loves me, but if He loves me, He can't really know me, because if He knew me, He wouldn't love me. But He knows me better than anyone else knows me. He knows everything about me. He knows the things that I don't want you to see. He knows it all. He knows me. He loves me. He forgives me. He lives within me. He is transforming me. And one day He will glorify me. So whatever happens, I can rejoice. I can say it is well. It is well with my soul. My Saviour. And my strength, verse 19. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of deer. He enables me to tread on the heights. You think about mountain deer, sure-footed, leaping confidently from crag to crag. Well, there's the picture of the one who trusts God through all the ups and downs and the difficult circumstances and terrain of this present life. Not crippled by tragedy, but keeping walking, keeping climbing. So when life falls apart, what then? If it comes, and it might come, we might feel as if the very foundations of the world are crumbling. But God has spoken. He promised that one day all will spoil life on earth, and all His enemies will be destroyed. And the glory of the Lord will cover the earth, and all will be well, and all manner of thing will be well. And those are absolute certainties on which we can build our lives in the midst of so much that is uncertain in this present world while we wait for the reality of the world to come. Let me give you a minute just to pause. You might like to make your own prayer to the Lord in the light of Habakkuk chapter 3. And then we have got some time, and during those last few minutes, an opportunity for you to ask any questions. Well, as I say, feel free to ask any questions really that could be related to Habakkuk, could be related to preaching and teaching, and anything you want to ask.
We heard about the old Babylon, but we know there is a mystery Babylon in the end time, which can be symbolized by three cities: religious Babylon in Vatican City, financial Babylon in City of London, and military Babylon in Washington, D.C. Are we to expect and even to pray for God to use that Babylon to judge the church? The church that is so in so bad connection, so bad things over the world. And later on, God's judgment coming upon all these world systems. In verse 2, O Lord, I heard thy speech and was afraid. O Lord, revive the work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years make known. In wrath remember mercy. Is it correct to pray for the judgment of God to come when we see what will happen when it looks like Sodom and Gomorrah in all the Western world?
Thank you. I don't think we can assume we understand what God's purposes are at any given moment in history. So what we're given is God's word at that particular time when Habakkuk was writing, and we knew then that it was his purpose to judge his people through Babylon. We can't read that and say at any given time in human history it's still his purpose to judge his church through Babylon. What we can be sure is one day Babylon will fall, and the judgment, wonderfully, since Christ has come, Christ has taken that judgment for his true church. So I'm nervous about assuming or praying that God will use whatever manifestation of Babylon there is right now to do the same now as he did back in the time of Judah. I can't be sure about that. He may do. But this is a revelation about the future, and ultimately that's about Christ who faced the judgment that he might give us when we see he drank the cup. But then also Revelation 17 to 19, that Babylon, you're right that this comes in different manifestations, but I think taking Babylon speaks for the world in opposition to God. It will take different forms. And at the end of time, there'll be none of that will stand before him. Thanks for the question.
I was going to ask, you began with the question, when life falls apart, what then? And you finished with the question, would you say that's the question that the passage is answering? And is that something that you'd recommend to us when we're preaching a passage?
Yeah, it's tricky because I think in one sense that's the question that's there in chapter 1. And so what I'm looking for is trying to work out what's the question behind this passage. Because I want in my introduction people to think, oh, what's the issue? Oh, that's an issue that relates to me. I'm interested in this question. And I want to see how the passage answers it. So I think some sermons are a bit like an elastic band that hasn't been charged. And if you don't charge an elastic band, it just flops to the floor. And so I want an introduction to charge the sermon so it's got momentum moving through. But I was doing, chapter 3 I think comes in the light of 1 and 2, so it summarizes the whole book. A bigger challenge is how to preach chapter 1. Because with narrative, basically the whole of Habakkuk is like one narrative. That chapter 1 sets up the tension, and resolution only comes in chapter 3, which is why when I got to chapter 3, I was referring back to chapter 1. But when you're just teaching chapter 1, and you don't want to you don't want to preach the whole book when you get to chapter 1, then how do you preach that? And that's a tricky one. But I think part of it would be saying, what does the life of faith look like? Well, sometimes it looks like chapter 1. Why? I don't get it, God. And that can be very helpful to people who don't have the answers to their questions. And Habakkuk at that point didn't have the answers to his questions, but he was a man of faith. And so one can teach without solving the problem. But then I still want to preach about Christ. And I can talk about Christ as the one who did say, why? Why have you forsaken him? Quoting the Old Testament, but he was there with us. And wonderfully, I wanted to say he came through. And because of that, I can continue to cope with the unanswered questions. But come back next week and we'll see more in Habakkuk. Yeah.
You spoke earlier about C.S. Lewis and the grief observed, and you were quite a lot of it was quite a lot of suffering also in the start of your sermon now. My question, I think, is how do we preach Christ as comforter and at the same time not becoming preachers who give promises that it becomes like a check with no cover, so to speak. So no health and wealth gospel. Could you expound on that? Do you get my question?
No, just try me one more time.
Yeah. The C.S. Lewis quote was about religion doesn't work as comfort, and still Christ is our comfort, but it's not the comfort that everything we do will go our way. So getting Christ as our big comfort, how do we do that?
Yeah, thank you. Well, in one sense I was trying to do that here. So by beginning, it's a strange opening point, because I began, unusually for me, with the end of the passage, and normally I work through. But the reason I wanted to do that is because actually that's in the background of the whole passage, because this great song of praise is sung in the midst of suffering. It's as it were, from exile, or in advance of exile, seeing that God is terrible things going to happen. So there's a reality that suffering goes on, and yet here is a man who is able to rejoice in God. But it's not a kind of superficial, sentimental kind of comfort, because it's in the face of ongoing horrors. And so what one's got to do is, if you teach the Bible, that's the thing. I think rather than taking verses out of the Bible, sentimental quotes that give the impression that trust in Jesus is all going to be marvellous, actually in the context you can find, yes, there's real peace, but there's ongoing suffering. Now, of course, not always will someone be able to sing from the heart, chapter 3, and say, I rejoice, which is part of the reason I take it we've been given. And part of the reason we're given the Psalms is sometimes you don't feel like saying this, but you believe it to be true. So you can say these words, and hopefully the more you say them, the more they shape and transform you.
One more. You didn't start in like verse 1 and go kind of verse for verse, as some people would. How did you decide how to sort of tackle the passage?
Yes. Well, I think the reason for the repeated refrain about faith was because of chapter 2. Because I think 2 verse 4 is the turning point of the whole of Habakkuk. And what ultimately is the transformation from why to worship? It is God speaking and Habakkuk responding with faith. And here in chapter 3 we have the man of faith. So that's why the faith refrain came through, even though it's not in the passage. You've got to see the context of the whole. And as I said just now, the reason I started with the end, I could have done that just in the introduction, in a way, and just made it very clear. What I want to make it very clear is that this is not some sentimentalism like marvels, but this is spoken from the context of judgment. We're still of God judging his people through Babylon, rather than God judging Babylon. That's still to come. And yet there's great comfort in the midst of it. And so that's why I imported the end into the beginning. But I could have done it another way, and then we followed it through sequentially. But I wanted to make it very clear. This is in the context of suffering, and faith is not immune to suffering. It's in the midst of suffering.